Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Booba Blabs. My sword is missing. I have a light, and today we're going to be talking about accountability. Accountability, if you go on Google and search up for its definition, means the obligation of an individual or organization to accept responsibility for their actions, behaviors, and results. And I think this is an important lesson. And I want to argue that accountability is probably the biggest thing that separates an adult from a child and the most important mature lesson that you can learn going into adulthood. And yet, despite that, I would argue that it's the most underrated, if not most overlooked thing when it comes to being an adult as a whole. There are a few things that I want to talk about when it comes to accountability and what does it mean for you and everything else. But I appreciate every single one of you for watching. I've started actually posting a lot more, and it's going to relate to the accountability today. But I'm very glad for all of you who are sticking on me on this journey. And I hope that we only get bigger, and I hope that we only get greater, and I hope that we just become smarter, more knowledgeable, and everything along the way. So let's get into it. So, again, accountability. I find it interesting in the Google definition that they say obligation, right? Despite accountability seeming like something where not everybody takes it, it's funny how the definition itself says that it's an obligation, but if you look into society or in reality, we often don't find that accountability is something that people often take or feel as though it's their obligation, maybe morally or like just in anything for that matter. I feel as though accountability is a very big lesson that is overlooked. And part of the reason for that is because I feel as though accountability is one of those things that as a child, a lot of people kind of get punished for, you know? See, in my African household or in my growing up with African parents, and I imagine it's similar for a lot of people, not even just foreign parent or African parents in general, but foreign parents or even maybe American parents, that when you were younger and oftentimes where you did something wrong, you would be afraid of the consequences of whatever that may be, which made it so that you were afraid of accountability. And maybe there were times where you did admit something and you still got punished anyways, or maybe there was just that you never wanted to admit it because you knew that the consequences of the actions for admitting what you did that was wrong would be, not good. Whether it be that you got grounded, whether it be that your parents were like hitting you or whatever, maybe you were afraid of physical punishment, who knows, right? And I think that because of that, we have a lot of people today who oftentimes, when they're going into adulthood, because that lesson has never been taught in a way that actually is beneficial or teaches somebody that sort of thing, it again gets overlooked. And you have a lot of adults now, or people that are in the older adult years, who are not able to take accountability. But the thing is that it's so interesting to me how this is something that spans throughout a bunch of generations, throughout a bunch of cultures, throughout a bunch of ethnicities. It's not just a one particular group that cannot take accountability. I would argue that it's the entire world, I made a video about empathy not too long ago, how I talked about how if you really sit down and think about other individuals as if they were your own, really sat down and truly tried to understand their perspective, their way of life, their understanding of things, then there would likely be a lot of less problems in the world. It would probably decrease majorly. And if everybody was doing it right, it might completely erase. But in tandem with that, it's about also or understanding the accountability. Part of the reason why people cannot understand the empathy part is because they're not able to take the accountability part or even understand the accountability part, right? If people are not under it's able to get why what they're doing is wrong, how can they understand how what they're doing is hurting somebody else, or how can they understand their actions affecting another individual, and it's one of those things where it's like it is very overlooked, and it's kind of sad. I find it often where grown adults cannot admit accountability. They do something wrong, and it's something where it's like, look to the side. And again, I feel like it's because of that punishment, and it includes maybe for the justice system or whatever maybe. It's oftentimes where people are not able to take accountability for actions that they did wrong. And a lot of the time, that's what leads into everything. Now, I don't want to really talk about that in specific, but at the same time, I notice that a lot, and it's kind of concerning where a lot of people in life or a lot of people will really go throughout it without accepting or taking both accountability and responsibility for themselves and the actions that they do. One of the best examples of this, or one of the two best examples of this, or actually, first I want to talk about mouth washing. Okay. See, I would argue this is probably the greatest example of it, right? Not anything else. I'm going to bring up something else, but mouthwashing is a game about a group of maybe like five people who are in space, right? And they're going to be doing a mission where they're supposed to be delivering some sort of thing for this corrupt corporation to another planet. But something happens where the planet crashes into a boulder, and now you're watching this player as or now you're watching this character as they're trying to like go throughout the days and survive and everything like that. First in the game, you get the characters' names, or two really important characters are named Jimmy, and another important character is named Curly. See, Curly is the captain of the ship. He's the one who Jimmy told everybody that he took the ship and slammed it into a boulder, which or asteroid in space, which caused everybody to actually slowly start to die and them going whatever and blah blah blah. But the biggest message of the game, literally plastered everywhere throughout it, the biggest theme, the biggest thing that they want to teach you is responsibility, and how when an adult or when a person truly doesn't take responsibility, the repercussions for that are beyond baffling. See, you get the perspective of Jimmy. You're playing with him from his perspective for most of the game. And from that, through the perspective of Jimmy, you get to see a bunch of weird ass stuff. Okay. You get to see like hallucinations that he's having. You get to see how he twists things, turns things. And it's one of those games that are so good, and it's because you're watching it from a character's perspective, but he's a very much unreliable and a lying narrator, right? He's the fault of everything. Everything that's happened that was bad was because of him. In fact, the reason why Jimmy, crashed the plane into an asteroid, spoiler for the game, mouthwashing came out a while ago, but he crashed the plane because he couldn't take accountability of a child that he had for doing whatever it may be with another crewmate, and because he didn't want to accept that he would have to face repercussions for what he did, if you get what I'm putting down, but also at the same time take care of this child and everything like that, all that, he decided that it's best to kill everyone. Because again, Jimmy's entire character is that he's overly able or overly unable to take responsibility. He completely dodges it, he pushes it aside, and it's to the point where it really just does come to a head, right? And at the end of the game, it's some really fucked up, in my opinion, where he slowly starts to try to admit that he can't take responsibility. But even within his admission, he tries to make it seem like he's the hero in the situation, that he's doing the right thing, when in reality, it's just him cleaning up a mess that he made, and completely, not even just a mess, he's just ruined people's lives. Like, by the time the game is over, like, hella people are dead, and everybody is like bad except for, or the only person that survives is literally like that has burned skin, is not able to probably walk or move or say or do anything for the rest of his life. And it's like, as you could see in that, it's just really concerning. Now, again, I don't think that people are Jimmy, but the scary thing about it is that part of the reason why Jimmy is so hated, and part of the reason why it's so scary, right, is because people similar to him or adjacent to him exist in real life, where this is an overly extreme example of what it would happen to not take responsibility, but people like him or people who have this trait like him exist in our world, where they will do something bad, they will do something wrong, but they won't face accountability because the actions of what happens afterwards is too scary and too much, too insurmountable to be able to actually face. I was talking to one of my friends at work, shout out Eric and Caleb or whatever, but I thought of a quote, off the dome, by the way. Don't try to glaze me. Don't glaze. But either way, the point of what I'm trying to say is that the quote was something like, I have to look at it. I wrote it down. It was, the hill that what's it called? The hill is only as high as the hole that, as deep as the hole that you dig, or as the depth of the hole that you dig. I essentially tried to say, or I was trying to basically mean that, like, the hill, or the thing that, like the hill, as is only going to be as high as the depth of the hole that you dig, meaning that basically the more that you dig yourself deeper into a hole, the more problems that you're going to have on the outside, while at the same time simultaneously being deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And I don't know if it fully applies to this, but if you can understand the idea that a lot of the time, taking accountability is really a you action because it all relates to you. You're the one that's doing it, right? It's all you. That's what it means to take accountability. If you're not at fault, then you don't have to, right? And so it's like in situations, of course, there's like, not everything is your fault, but even taking accountability in a situation is like, really important to do so that you can be able to move forward because not everything is your fault, but also not everything is the other person's fault at the same time. And again, I go back to why it's such a mature thing to do because essentially it's one of those things where a lot of we're human beings, right? We have a lot of emotions, we argue a lot, we fight a lot, we do all these other things with interacting with other humans. And as you can imagine, that when it comes to us, we're very individualistic people or whatever it may be, where we can only know our own thoughts and our own emotions, where problems might arise and we feel as though our problems are the problems, right? Where even though we might be the one causing pain, we don't go out of our way to really understand, which relates back to the empathy part of it. And I think that's why it's really important to do in going into adulthood, because not only is it relation to other human beings, but also you yourself, right? You might not think about it in this way, but your success is based on your accountability or your ability to hold yourself up to the standards that you want it to be. If I want to get more popular, if I want to go viral on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it may be, right? But I'm not posting every day or I'm not doing the efforts in order to do it. I can't turn around later and say that, oh, it was just not for me, or the luck was not in my cards, or it's not my fault. It is my fault. It is my responsibility, or like if I'm able to hold myself accountable for those things, then I will maybe get there. I'll eventually get there. And it's like it's one of those situations where even in that, it's like many people don't think about it in that way. Like again, your actions and the things that you do, you are accountable for. It's like it's a weird thing because again, people don't often view it in that way, in the sense of like it's you and it would be your fault if you don't get something. And that's not what I'm trying to say, but more like a lot of people oftentimes blame other things, other people, other situations, rather than looking at themselves. And again, in relation to empathy, once again, and it's really because of that. It's really like you're so focused on you that you can't understand another. And that's scary, right? But I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, when you sit down and you truly think about who you are and what you want to do, what imprint you want to leave, and how you act, taking accountability is not only one of the most important, but respectable things. Like have a vivid memory, right? Back in middle school, where essentially what happened is there was this guy that I was in band with or whatever maybe, and me and him had been bickering that day. It's not like me and him were enemies or whatever, but I think we and him were just simply fighting that day. I don't know what, it got on my nerves. And something happened where I think either he headbutt me or I headbutt him or something like that. We headbutt one another, and it caused us to be like, frustrated. And this could have been the end of like a friendship, or this could have been something that escalated into a fight. But I remember that it was maybe a few minutes after that this kid came up to me and apologized. He was like, I didn't mean to do whatever it may be, and I'm sorry for hitting you, and like I don't want anything bad to happen. Like I just don't want that. And despite me being younger at the time, I really, really did respect it. I really deeped that, and I was like, huh, that's really cool. If it was maybe anybody else, this would have been beef, and I'm fine with that by all means, because you hit me or I hit you, I don't know, right? But at the end of the day, I felt as though that, like, the anger not only was dissipated, but I really respected him from then on out, because I realized that he, even at such a young age as being in band in middle school, he was able to learn accountability, or at least learn responsibility, or like, act adult. It was a very mature thing, is what I'm trying to say. And again, oftentimes you don't even find that in real life or with adults' life. Going into adulthood, I can't really say that I've seen something adjacent to that, or at least something that's affected me adjacent to that, where I've recognized it and was like, this is really important. And it's like, again, it's just very scary. It's a very scary thought. I continuously think of mouthwashing, and I'm very after that game, and really nowadays I'm really focused on how people like interpret that, how people do take accountability or responsibility. When I find that someone is not able to do it, sometimes I just get irritated. It might just be the end of a conversation, end of me talking with them, especially when it comes to my own parents, where they will oftentimes, or they might oftentimes never recognize fault, or even if they do, they won't actually say anything about it, which means absolutely zero. And so at the end of the day, I think that accountability is something that you have to search within yourself, like to not only be mature enough to recognize it, apologize, and move forward to be able to take the repercussions of whatever you might have done, but it's also one of those things where it's really a lesson that you have to sit down, learn in deep. Because again, one day I might make a video on ego, but those two things are very, very aligned in my opinion. I think that the higher someone's ego, the more likely they're not able to take accountability for something. But hey, uh, yeah. So again, take accountability in your life. Take accountability for your actions, your future, and what you want to do in life, not just when it comes to arguments, not when it comes to fights. And recognize yourself as one part of a bigger whole. Not everything's about you. And while you are in control of your life and the things that you know are you, like taking accountability is you, at the same time, in recognizing that you are one part of the whole, and recognizing that at the end of the day, while your accountability is you, the reason why you're doing accountability is for a greater peace, then maybe you'll be able to see what the importance of it might be. Thank you guys for watching. More stuff is coming soon. We're going to be on a binge. We're going to be spamming out content more and more and more. Hopefully, I get more things by the end of the summer. Or actually, let's make a goal. By the end of this summer, or let's say at least by the end of the year, I want to have at least 60 to 70 subscribers on YouTube. Okay? 60 to 70 subscribers on YouTube by the end of this year, if not more. Okay? My girlfriend told me to manifest stuff more, so this is what I'm trying to do. 70 subscribers I will have by the end of this December. Okay? Thank you all. Appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you.